Hello, hello.
Hope you're doing well.
Good to see everybody.
You want to take the
Mm.
time to look at the other yogis. Mm, mm,
Mm. Before we get started, I wanted to just make a correction about last week. I realized I really gave the impression that I didn't know about what the sound of music was. And it doesn't matter if you all don't know if I know what sound of music is or not, but my mother would literally be rolling in her grave at the way that conversation ended last week. And I just need to say that what I did was confused about was the singing nun, who I was like, I know it's not the same person, but I somehow still Julie Andrews is in my head. And so um,
How we
that
feel. It's
I,
how we
I
feel.
will profess ignorance around the singing nun and the difference between her and Maria in The Sound of Music. To clear that. Mm. All right. Let's sit together for a little while. So once again, just taking the time, come into your seated posture in a way that feels more inviting than forced. That willingness to explore what some kind of relative stillness can mean right now in terms of this relationship between the body and the mind. Letting the eyes come to close. We recognize there is no perfect stillness. Everything is moving. Phenomena at all of the sense doors are arising and passing. Profound instability is the nature of all conditioned experience. So we're not trying to override that, impose that upon the body, something beyond nature, beyond its nature. We recognize there's so much static, so much noise that we are subject to in our world, lives. The overwhelm of the flood of experience, our sensitivity to its uncontrollability, its appearing pleasant qualities, rising unpleasant qualities. Sometimes it's hard to notice neutral quality. So we resist, we cling, we distract, trying to manage this flood of fabrications throughout all of the sensory experience, including the mind, heart. So what we think of as stillness, what we long for ultimately, not the controlling of these phenomena, forcing the door close on all of them, controlling, containing, but a heart that is quiet, caring, in response to all of the volatility. It doesn't perpetuate it or augment it through its entanglement. So we receive the physical experiences throughout the body. And the heart has to bear the pleasant, unpleasant, maybe neutral qualities of each moment of experience. And it has to bear the pain or the loss of pleasure. The body has to bear the pain, the loss of pleasure, the confusion, uncertainty in the heart mind itself. And so the mind wriggles and squirms, seeks out comfort, physical comfort, mental, emotional comfort, sense pleasure, of course. But we also see moment by moment receiving the body, receiving sounds, visual impression, smells and tastes, all the qualities of heart and mind itself. At times we notice we can receive it, connect, know, feel it fully without squirming, without trembling. Each phenomena known on its own term. The joy that arises, appreciated, cared for, sorrow, hardship that arises, cared for as well. Each moment of gain, each moment of loss, the heart is softened and strengthened, tempered through this coming and going, pushing and pulling, wanting, not wanting, rejecting, clinging, accepting. Wherever we look, whatever sensation arises, the same method, same insight, and the same truths. But we also see the value of just letting the tension settle in one area, the body seated, the hands touching, the rising and falling of the breath at the abdomen, or the coming and going of sounds. Just picking one of these fields of attention as our primary. The body, the hands, the abdomen, or sound. And just watching very, very closely the changes without an agenda, without attachment to any particular experience. Trying to stay connected through a full rising of the breath, full sound coming and going, full, sometimes nameless sensation in the body. Knowing it from the inside, tenderly, kindness, care, recognizing the worthiness of any phenomena to be known more fully, received more carefully, observed more clearly. Slowly being humbled, being strengthened, being softened by this commitment to the truth. Thanks for ringing the bell, Michelle. I was gonna have to try this little. We don't have any bells. Can you hear this? If I have to in the future. Good thing the bell worked. We have some time again. If anyone has any your practice about the instructions, things happening in your spiritual life, just statements that we might be able to, or some reflections on. You can do as Julia has done. Raise your Zoom hand by clicking a little button on the screen that says raise hand. Click into the chat that you have a question to me, or wave your real hand. Well, Julia, let's see, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Hi, Julia.
Hi, Michelle. Sandra. Part of me feels like I should be a purist and only ask how to practice internally questions. But it's kind of a social question about what is supportive of my practice and what sorts of difficult relationships can I open to without losing the practice. So I have this movement teacher that I just, she's an amazing, amazing movement teacher, just fantastic and deep and subtle and really highly attuned to the body. And we have this whole group of people that we kind of practice with her. And she threw an adult temper tantrum at me this week. I can't say that I, know her super well, really deeply, all the stuff about her life. This is probably the third year that we've done this body practice. And it's kind of a question about when someone does a personality thing that's super reactive on the one hand, but is an amazing teacher of their art on the other hand. And it's not clear to me, like if she has another workshop, if I should go. And I remember also like 17 years ago, I had a drumming teacher where he was kind of stoned a lot, otherwise he would be really reactive. And so there were a lot of drugs in this. It was a really cool, like from this island, this polyrhythmic, like 6/8, like really trippy, hypnotic, and he was amazing. Like he knew all this story. I mean, he's a white guy, but for a white guy, he was like the teacher. And I hope that wasn't a prejudiced way to say it. Sorry. But so with him, I knew it was really clear at one point, like there were just too many drugs. And no matter how much I love the subtle, hypnotic, like mind gooey rhythms and this, that I for my practice, I needed to be away from that culture a little bit. And so it's not as clear with this movement woman. She's fantastic and she was under a lot of stress, but it was really like she was gesticulating with her hands above her head and this sharp, like sort of piercing voice and stomping and like turning her back. And she's in her 60s. And it was out of the blue. And so I'm just wondering, do you have any recommendations? Like I know in like the order of interbeing, like with Thich Nhat Hanh, like one of those 14 is that you'll attempt to resolve every, like every little conflict, no matter how small. And like, I'm just wondering how to work with it, if you have any suggestions, because I know that in Sangha, schism is something that we protect against and can be heartbreaking. And it is kind of an Indian kind of movement art that, yeah, that's all.
It's such an important question, actually. I mean, it's a very specific situation, but of course, it's something we all encounter one way or another with, our, the realities of our imperfect guides and teachers, and so I'm sure we'll both have. I can start, Michelle. Does that sound? Yeah. I know. I'll say I know my internet is a little choppy sometimes, so my apologies if it gets bad. I have a second option I can try. I mean, I maybe very like the specific and the general. I mean, I think that ethic of trying to repair relationships that are important is a fairly good. It's a really good baseline, and trying to do it as quickly as you can, because things can fester. We sometimes maybe lose a sense of urgency. I think that some things it's not always repairable. I splitting the Sangha in terms of like the big thing, the Dhamma, the Buddha said. I mean, that's doesn't mean that or you just have to go one way. People separate from each other. That happens in Buddhist communities as well. So I think so that question of it seems hard for me to believe that through one incident it was sort of irreparable. I also can tell that it was more jarring than just
Yeah.
a quick kind of like, oh, he said something a little edgy, or it was like a little hard, and it sounds like it was actually quite different in terms of what you understand in her approach and personality. And so I mean, I think that it would be, to me, it would seem rather like severe and intense to just say and not like engage anymore. Not to say that there might, sometimes we're that sensitive to a certain kind of way of being, or maybe we look back and we see actually this has been building and it's not just this one incident, and it gives you information. So I think we're going to say you should ultimately do one thing or another. To me, it feels like, we are, we're most of us very imperfect. As you say, we have hard days, things build up. We're all like works in progress. And that it seems worth, especially since it feels like a very important community and practice to you, it seems like worth trying to um, find a way to see what would feel like a good way to go back. And I think that there's the version where you sort of just take a break and you show back up and you don't say anything, and things sort of smooth out for a while until something else happens. I mean, that's an approach. It depends, I think, how invested you feel. The more direct kind of on the, in a quieter moment or on the side or through email or a phone call or whatever, of just engaging her around your experience and how it felt, and if she had any more that she wanted to say, or if she wanted to, if you put that invitation out for whether it's an apology or some kind of process, is she open to that? I mean, that'll give you a lot of information in terms of what her kind of orientation might be, and be interesting to see, what if you did have a conversation with her in a more private way, what that might look like. Because I think there's also the fair, you have experiences in spiritual community where, of course, people ignore behavior, and then you end up feeling like you're kind of involved in something that feels unhealthy and unwholesome beyond your own experience, and you do want to be careful about that, for sure. Um, but you also, I think all of us need to be careful about assuming, that there is something sort of just more nefarious at the heart of the matter, and it's like you don't know. My encouragement would be uh, to to engage with her in a way that felt sort of safe to see what happens in that. But I could also understand wanting just like a little space, taking a week or two off and coming back, or just sort of mitigating that sort of intensity and the how wounded you might feel, and attending to that, for yourself.
So
Um,
she just recently moved and she came back to lead the workshop, and the blow up was on the first day of a 4-day workshop. And
mhm,
so I thought about it and I stayed for the whole workshop, which was the majority of my week. And I didn't say anything during the workshop because I felt that she had to be like in her professional mode leading the workshop. And then on kind of the last day as I was leaving, because she's going back to where she moved to, I said, you're an amazing teacher, and I really appreciate you coming all this way back home, to lead this workshop. And I just want you to know that I feel really open to us, discussing what happened on Monday, and could we repair that, you know. And she said me too, but I didn't really do anything. I just sort of sat down and watched her like flip out, but she was under a lot of stress. So, and she hasn't called. So I don't, I mean, yeah, but I appreciate those. Yeah, 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 yeah.
could start a revolt.
Hmm? So
Could
do
start a revolt. Yeah. Crown yourself leader of the thing. It's another option. Oh, Michelle, you're muted there.
Oh, see.
You're
Yeah.
Say it again.
I'm unmuted. I think that a lot of these situations are nuanced in terms of our own individual relationship to a teacher being um, that unprofessional. Like that's really unprofessional. And it would have been great if she had apologized before you even went up to her. But even then, not being able to take responsibility, that usually for most people, not everybody, and this is what I mean by nuance, some people would feel extremely unsafe from that point on, especially if the movement is creating a space where you open more and more. So, like for some people,
It is.
I would recommend, if one is feeling too unsafe and there's not a opening of apology, that person probably shouldn't come back. But then there are people that, for whatever reason, the karma is not to feel that unsafe in that kind of a situation. And they might be able to bear, as Jesse said in the instructions, bear the unpleasant, pleasant, neutral, bear it and see what happens, show up and see what happens. Um, and, I'm trying to say nuance because there's such a wide spectrum of how we all are. And I don't think there's any cookie cutter answer to this. It's more like how you feel. but certainly, we can't always see the karma of what happens. So, who knows? This could be leading you into a whole different path, or it could be leading you into the same path, but a deepening of your own work with your own sense of safety, right? Like I know you'll make use of it no matter what you decide. If you practice a long time, you're usually going to make use of these situations, no matter what. So the teaching here isn't the teacher, it's the situation.
Okay.
So that's what I would look at it as. It's a teaching, but I would separate it out from the teacher to really see if it's worth what you're learning. Is that clear? I hope that's clear.
Yeah, like that it's not so much about like what she said or did or her personality or the teacher, but it's the whole coming together of causes and conditions and patterning, and what is the what can be learned from this situation, to look at it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
helpful.
to really take the precedent here is your safety.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because it was kind of like, there's this idea that we have channels like nadis, or so there like in yoga or acupuncture, that it's a very inner sort of movement, and there's a broadening of what they call channel system, whether it's real, and so it is a very tender, sensitive sort of inner work. um, and I did have the thought at some point during the week, well, this is really interesting. Like, I'm in this very, very vulnerable place, like with someone who's just blown up. I'm wearing like tights, and I want to stay friends with this group of people, and that's really important to me too. And yet, this sort of rent, or what's a tear, I guess, in the fabric of relationship has just occurred. And isn't it interesting that I stayed? Yeah. So that, yeah, that's,
Yeah, I mean, I really think that what you just even said, because my sense is that it's a very vulnerable situation, but if it is, if this person has no sense of their behavior causing harm, I wouldn't consider it safe.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But again, there's people, everyone's different, and some people will not be as affected as others, but still not, again, you're presenting someone who you think highly of as a good teacher, and perhaps she needs to learn something from this. Perhaps, right? Like if she could learn something from this, it would be great.
yeah, yeah. Thank you both. It's really helpful. I'm trying to look at my own patterning of whether, do I have a tendency to stay or do I have a tendency to go, and it's really somewhere in the middle. But yeah. So thank you.
I mean, like maybe just to reflect on that, Julia. I mean, like Michelle has already, but just that I hope you feel good about it. Just feel what comes across is a very mature attempt at integrating and attending to internally and externally something really difficult, really jarring and really, really, really
Surprising.
hard, offensive and shocking and, really difficult.
Yeah.
And I do think that Michelle's pointing out, it's like, it's not a good sign that you're basically having to do it alone. That not only does she not really respond, and that it has that feeling like she's not going to call you. Like you'd have, if you really wanted to do this, it's going to be you being the adult to do it.
Yeah.
But also it doesn't, I mean, it sounds like this happened in a group of people, right?
It happened on the lunch break of the first
Okay.
day, and we were alone.
Oh, okay.
And
So I was
the
going to
other
say
people
the
had
other community isn't around, but they're not necessarily aware that this happened. Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think they could tell that I was very tender for some reason, maybe. I don't even
Yeah.
know. They might have just been in their own depth experience.
Channels. Yeah. 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 So anyway, whatever you decide to do,
Yeah.
it just really does feel like you did a very good job of trying your best to sort of be honest about the pain, the hardship, the confusion, like that question of, I mean, it's an interesting question. Is my tendency to do this or that, but also that it shouldn't feel like you're a prisoner because you have a tendency. I mean, it's good that you're aware of that, but not be over hard on yourself if you went along with your tendency with that, wherever it might be. Um, but that you still tried to do that in a way that was very responsible, and very, mature and adult. And it, it is hard when that doesn't necessarily still lead to it's not necessarily given back to you, and
World
you'll
peace.
do what you do. Yeah. So it's, I feel like I just have faith that you're gonna, whichever decision or decisions you make in the future with it, it feels like you're in a really good place to be making good decisions, and that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Wow, that feels really good. Thanks for recognizing that. Yeah, yeah. Both of what you two both said just is really, it's nourishing and supportive while allowing me to kind of look at the specifics. Yeah, thank you, thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much, both of you.
Mm-hmm. Jean. Oh, you remuted. Okay, there you go.
Unmuted, then muted. So
Hi,
good at this
Jane.
Zoom thing. Hi there. Hi. So nice to see everyone. I had two questions kind of earlier this week. I forgot the second one. I should have written them both down, and the second one was the one I kind of really wanted to ask, but so I thought, well, I can't remember it, so I'll ask the person. I I had this kind of contrastive experience where, I was in the middle of kind of a thought jam of some kind, and all of a sudden there was just this space there. And it was, kind of space that I've tasted on retreat or, with real kind of dedicated periods of practice. But it was like so pleasant, and it didn't feel like it was earned in any way, it was just like, oh, just total kind of space, and realizing like that the kind of cogitation that I was involved in was like, where am I going with that? What the heck, right? Do I really want to reside there? Like, yeah, no thanks. And then it was like this curiosity, a sense of, oh, how much space do you really have here? Like, and then with that moment, where to place the mind or the heart, or, so I did just some body practice, and then I kind of like went looking for other options for thoughts, Anyway, it was like this whole, period that I won't dive into the details around. But anyway, just like, so it was this interesting kind of a sense of like a two things happening at once. It didn't feel like thought had ceased or anything, close to that, but it was just like this real uh, observing, just this observation, and it, kind of ran for a period. And it's happened a few times since. But then, like, I woke up in the middle of the night with this just deep, deep fear. And only after did I realize it, but like I couldn't, I think I was trying to get some space around it or trying to kind of rationalize it or whatever it may be, but um it was like really hard. And so I ended up really having to like kind of into metta and just, kind of holding some sense of protection and warmth and so on, but it didn't feel quite. So anyway, afterwards, I was reflecting on the difference between that clarity around thinking and realizing that I very rarely have that kind of clarity around emotion, like, or something deep or more almost primal that feels like it arises. So anyway, that's my kind of half-baked, half-formed question for the moment.
I could start. I think there's a lot in what you said, maybe a lot more than you might realize. Because even the word earned,
Mhm.
we put in our time practicing, and that is something that you can't always see the result in a sequence of time that would make it clear that it was earned. But it will not happen. These things won't happen without our time. I think that there's something very important in understanding that it's actually that it unfolds this way, or otherwise we would like we could control when this kind of space appears. So that the deep thing I want to offer this in terms of this part of your question is that anatta, they're not being a personal controller, is revealed deeply in these situations, but it does not mean that there's no causation at all. It means that see the difference? So it's important to recognize that as we practice, there are many helpful things that appear that can't look back 5 seconds and see why they happen. But if you look back 5 years, which is what Upandita recommends, by the way, check out every 5 years with your practice, you'll get a sense of the changes that are happening. So that's super, super important, and that could take, more time, but your question had so many things in it, and I wanted to address a few, and then Jesse can, I might have just lost the other one. Oh yeah. Oh. You can have 100% space with thought without thought disappearing. So I don't know if you have this idea that thought should disappear. Freedom has nothing to do with what's appearing. So we're not trying to get rid of the eye door. We're not trying to get rid of ear to have freedom with sound. We're not trying to get rid of the ear. And we're not trying to get rid of thought to have freedom of thought whatsoever. So that's just that reminder that it's great and wonderful when we get this kind of space, because the space, if you define it more clearly, is equanimity, I think, in this case.
Yeah.
And it feels so wonderful.
Mm.
It just feels so wonderful. And equanimity usually does appear this way. It just happens. It can feel like a kind of grace, but it is not unearned. It just doesn't appear when we want it to appear, which is good, because if you think you can control it, you're going to go down a much more less accessible path to equanimity.
Mm.
It's foolproof. I love equanimity because it's foolproof. You can't control it. Luckily, because it's the absence of greed, hatred, and delusion. And in that case, you don't have to get rid of thought, but you are seeing it so clearly. That's you're seeing it so clear. So the mindfulness and the equanimity are strong there. And third, I think that sometimes when these things happen, we get more vulnerable at some point. And again, you can't always detect it like 2 hours later, or like it doesn't have a schedule. Vulnerability doesn't have a schedule. So that it came up in the middle of the night, that's what we learn very slowly over time, is that thinking itself is what protects us from vulnerability. So humans think and think and think and think, so we don't have to feel vulnerable. So it's like, when you're just involved with even general chatter, it's like you have a friend. You have a friend there talking to you. We're talking to ourselves. That's like a way we feel more protected. So when the equanimity is that strong, don't need that protection. So you're not believing the thoughts. So it doesn't matter what the thoughts are, because you're not believing them. But usually you're going to pay a price in that we get afraid. We'll get afraid because when the equanimity and mindfulness, disappear or get less, then we're not protected by the equanimity, and we actually need the thinking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because exactly, the equanimity was so pleasant. It really was. And you're right, though, it was pleasant in its absence of any pursuit or resistance or confusion, right? It really did feel like, it's like just so not blank, just very quiet, just very at ease, relaxed.
We love it. We want it to last forever.
Awesome. It was awesome. Like, of course we do. Oh my God, please.
Jean, did you bring
Just-
enough for everybody? Did you bring enough?
yeah, it's plenty. It's all over the place. Yeah, no problem. Until mine runs out, and then I don't know, somebody else is gonna have to pick it up, I guess.
That's the Sangha. That's why we have Sangha. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I want to muddle what Michele said. I think it's very
I don't
pure.
think you would, but it was
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just say, the fear, I think you're right. That's what felt like was that I was like kind of forcing new thought. You know what I mean?
Right.
In a sense, right? Metta became a very active thought process, like maybe peaceful, but that's really good to know. Like, okay, we're just protecting ourselves with
right. And the thoughts probably weren't working enough, so the fear had to protect you. The fear is the little me going, oh, wait a minute. It's just going, If you take, but
I'm
it's
just
like,
a little thing.
right,
I'm a
I'm
little
just so,
tiny little thing,
right,
unprotected. And, yeah.
yeah. So it's primal, but it's an attempt to protect ourselves.
Mm, mm, mm,
And then if you disconnect and you lose the relationship with the fear, you're even less protected.
mm,
We
mm.
all know that. We all know that cycle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, that I would maybe say that, that
Yeah.
if for those of, folks here who have gone on longer retreats, Gene, it's like you see, right? When you're on retreat, you start to get a sense of these rhythms, like throughout your day or throughout a series of days, or what is over 10 days is sort of like dropping in, coming out, dropping in, coming out. And you watch the sort of like opening of the mind and the contraction. And over time, right, there's a way that we stop trying to get to the opening and you just realize you're kind of along for this ride. But I think what we forget is, and understandably, that this these rhythms are still happening in our daily life. It's not like they only happen on retreat. There is this opening and contracting of the heart that's happening all the time. The rhythms will change because we're not attuning to them. We're not, there's all kinds of other things. There's reasons why it gets out of whack, and the rhythms aren't necessarily as predictable. But this is kind of one of those things too, where you're like, oh, there sometimes, and sometimes there might be more of a sense of why now, right? Oh, are things quieter in our life, or autumn is very evocative, or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's just really out of the blue. But there are just times where you will catch the wave of this kind of rhythm, right? Of this sort of opening and contraction in the heart. And it is wonderful to have it happen not on retreat, because there is something reassuring about it in a different way. And that your system integrates it in a different way. And it's just, yeah, it's wonderful. It's great to hear.
Yeah. I
Sometimes it's
guess
just
it just
motivating to go back into retreat too.
yeah, for sure. For sure. But you're right, though. It does kind of gave me a little taste of like Deepama, lay people, you can wake up anywhere, anywhere. And I thought, oh, yeah, little wake up. Nice.
Yeah.
We'll sleep again.
I'm so glad, Jesse, you said that. And I'm so glad you're seeing that, because that's really the truth.
Mm, mm, mm.
Thanks, Gene.
Thank you to all your instructions.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm.
Hi, Rita. Can you unmute there?
I want an explanation. What does equanimity really mean? I cannot grasp that word. That's my question.
Do you, I was about to gonna have Michelle take it. But do you have more, is there anything more about like what feels difficult about it, or that feels
No, I just
confusing about it?
don't know what it is. How would I translate it in German? Let's just put it that way then. Yeah.
I don't know German.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I'm having a hard time
Right.
to
I get it.
understand that word. What does it mean? If you could describe it in English?
Yeah, I mean, it could take 5 days of
Oh, yeah.
constant talking to describe it, because it's a seventh factor of awakening. It's considered to be sometimes it's called holy equanimity. It's such a important liberating factor of mind. So to make it simple, it's really I don't know if you'll find this simple, but if you look at that, every moment of experience is different and changing.
Yeah.
So the teaching the sixth sense door, moment to moment awareness, right? So equanimity is when we're at peace every moment with whatever's happening at the
Oh,
six
yeah.
sensors, right? It's without conditions. The awareness has no conditions on it. It's
Uh-huh.
just unfolding
Yes.
experience, right? Without any kind of
Yeah.
attachment. There's at that time, there's no attachment to the pleasant. There's no pushing away or fear of the unpleasant, and there's no confusion.
Oh,
And
I
so,
understand.
yeah, so
Uh-huh.
there's an absence. There's an absence of the appearance of attachment. There's an absence of the appearance of aversion or fear or delusion because there's enough mindfulness. So it's depending, there's enough mindfulness and there's enough acceptance unconditionally of pleasant,
Yeah,
unpleasant,
yeah.
neutral. Yeah. That the reason it's so liberating is because even if aversion appeared, we would see it clearly and go, oh, ha, 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 aversion, and we wouldn't react to it, right? Or
Yeah.
thinking thoughts that we don't like would appear, and it would be like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Just thinking, there'd be, oh, just thinking, just hearing, just smelling, just tasting. There's,
No, I think
so,
it gave a very good impression
okay, yeah.
about
So
what you mean. I can
that,
understand that all, but I
yeah,
did not know it was behind that word.
yeah, no, it's good. And the ultimate aspect of it is that the Buddha taught that it's the resistance to what's happening that's suffering. And what the nature of equanimity is that there's no resistance to what's
Oh,
happening.
yeah. Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that
And
very well.
if there's enough equanimity, if resistance appears, you would, which is the hardest, you would see it clearly and just say, oh, resistance. Okay, no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Jesse just put up the German word.
Oh, good.
What?
I don't know if it's good. I just looked it up. Gleichmut?
Gleichmut, yeah. I can
Yeah.
understand that. Oh,
Does
yeah,
that
I should
sound
have
similar
looked
to
it
what?
up. I
Ah,
looked
I
it
don't know.
one time, but it's long ago and I couldn't find a good translation. But
Yeah.
Gleichmut, I think it really tells the what Michelle just said. Yes,
Mm,
I can understand it
yeah.
very well. But I
Mm.
wanted to hear it from your position, yours,
Yeah.
Michelle. What do you mean? It makes much more sense now to me because I had this problem every time when I listened to you. I was thinking, so what do they really mean? And now I think I have a much better understanding. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Thank
Jesse,
you.
I mean, there's so much to say about it. Do you want to add anything? Because it's everything. Equanimity is really,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
good.
think that was
It's a
interesting.
good thing.
Sometimes, like Jean was saying, sometimes it's very pleasant, just that quietude, and then other times it's even not, it's more neutral, right? It's very, so
Mhm.
sometimes it has more of a pleasant quality and you feel that relief because you're just
Mhm.
not struggling with everything. And other times it's even kind of more neutral than that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's wonderful. I was just listening to part of a podcast of a German woman who went to Burma in the 30s, studied with Uba Khin, who was Goenka's teacher, and it was wonderful to hear her experience in that era,
Wow.
learning
Yeah,
the Dhamma. So I was like, oh, there has to be a word. I almost went to that thing.
yeah. No, very good.
She found her
Thank
way.
you. Thank you very much. Must have
Yeah.
been very interesting at that time.
Yeah.
Really.
Different era. Yeah.
Different era,
Mm.
yes. Yes, yes. And Lexi she travels still so much in countries and makes her things despite being sick. So I really admire her a lot because I'm sick too, and we basically have pretty much similar things where we deal with. And so I really admire her a lot. But Lexi, I'm sure. And so she is very good in all these things, still doing that meeting with all the Buddhist women and all that stuff. I really admire her a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's very
She's
good.
a force of nature. Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
she is amazing. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Julie. Oh, hold on. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up on Jean's question. She was talking about the fear arising in the night and how she used metta. And I just wanted to follow up on that because I know I've asked a question in the past one time about how to deal with, dreams where you're feeling fear or they're very unsettling. And I know that's what I've been able to be conscious enough in my dream to be able to bring in like a kind of a prayer that's asking for metta. And then I just realized another factor. I guess it's part of our balancing, all the different kinds of actions and thoughts and just regularity in life. That affects my qualities of being able to have less agitation in dreams by having regularity and sleeping earlier and all that kind of thing. So like I perceive that as a kind of practice because I try not to allow things to really escalate, like overthinking, over intensity, overactivity, underactivity too, being really lazy. So I was just kind of an open question, I guess, related to that, to Jean's question. Thank you.
I guess I can start. I don't know how much I have to say. I think it's maybe a good, maybe part of it is just the other side of the equation. And on one hand, you can't control and you can't predict what's going to happen, and yet we can do certain things that set certain things in motion or that plant certain seeds that will grow, right? And so that by that kind of carefulness with our actions, we do also set the stage for quieter times internally, and so so there's a reason why monastics are not, are more sort of restrained in their daily actions and their activities and what they're consuming, in terms of not just food, but in terms of media and how involved they are in things, and that sense that yes, like more quietude, more seclusion will tend to lead towards more quietude, and yet, and that we in that space we are able to manage the voltage and the intensity and the flow of the uncontrollability side of things, because it's we're able to practice with a sometimes a less volatile kind of palette, so it is also true that it's not to say that our actions don't matter. I think partly what Michele was sort of describing is that the time frame of them is not necessarily dependable or predictable, and that we do have to be careful that we're not doing it in order to, that we don't have the expectation that by behaving a certain way, we're going to avoid all mental distress or physical discomfort or whatever it might be, right? So I don't think you're saying that, but I'm just to sort of say that side of it, where I think that sense of yes, some things may show up very quickly, and then you have a certain rhythm to how you're attending to things, and something inevitably will disrupt that rhythm, or it will fail us at times, and you'll still have a anxious night or something like that. But I think it is the other side of it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't matter, and that we do try to care for ourselves and protect ourselves, and operate in ways that are conducive to more calm, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Seems
I get
wise. It's yeah.
I get that, and it's like thanks for mentioning the thing about the sense of over control. Like it's not a matter of controlling; it's a matter of just having sort of balance in living. But I guess I wanted to also address the question about how like Jean mentioned, she brought in metta, and yeah, it's sort of a mysterious space to be in, when you're in your dreaming state and you're not conscious, and then all of a sudden you become aware that something's happening, and it's almost like your own willpower comes in and is able to do something to alleviate or to rectify the chaos or something. I found that interesting in what Jean said, if that's related at all to what I just said.
I think metta is essential. I mean, uh, very few people are not susceptible to nightmares or, intense dreams. And in some ways, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think they're all messages. There's sometimes intensity in dreams is a cry for attention. So I don't necessarily see it as negative, but I think you're right. Like what we're trying to offer, yeah, is how are we responding to it? And the practice, metta is a practice at night, or it could be karuna, it could be mudita or equanimity practice, but it's that sense of the more you do it, the more you're going to be able to do it. So like that teaching of Deepama where she'll say, have your hand on your heart before you go to sleep. And it can be a 3-second practice, but this is meant to be a lifetime practice, that it seems like maybe it's not hard enough or something, or maybe it's just not but to just put your hand on your belly and feel a few breaths, right? Like with the Vipassana and do the metta or compassion. There's a reason why she teaches that,
Yeah.
right? It's not a lightweight intention, because it changes the whole motivation, so that if you do wake up, you usually are vulnerable. And if there's something intense, the more you practice relating to it with loving kindness, right? The more that you'll relate to it with loving kindness or
Yeah.
compassion, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a practice. That's why it's called practice. And it's so important for all of us to remember that the more you practice this, the more you're going to have the freedom and choice with how to relate to it.
Yeah. I think in the past there was a period I went through where I was trying to use methods like, setting up protection sort of types of things. And there's a lot of methods that are propounded for about that. And then I finally just dropped them all and found, like, kind of like a prayer to Tara, which is kind of like meant to be protection, was always where I went back to. And it's about metta. And so thank you. I appreciate um that was sort of a double-sided question. So thank you from both of you. Yeah, thank you. Practice.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having methods and having like rituals but I do think that there is it ultimately coming to that place where like the deepest protection is mindfulness, and being able to see things as they are, and how powerfully that can happen. Yeah, for sure. And
Whereas some of those
Yeah.
other methods are very much about control, figuring.
yeah, I think it is interesting. I mean, I think there is an interesting question, and I want to underscore what Michele said too, of like, there sometimes dreams are revealing of anxieties or worry, the things that are important. It's not, it's and to if the if the motivation is to not feel certain things, yes, there's you have to be a little, sometimes that can be healthy protection, and sometimes that's like you have to be a little careful with that motivation of not wanting to feel something that's being experienced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have been noticing that just about all my dreams that are, kind of rocky they're always lessons. They're always things, and they're related to things that I'm needing to learn again, and
Yeah.
so I'm really grateful for them by and large, and yeah.
Wow.
So thank you so much.
Great. All right. Thank you, Julie. Yeah.
Okay.
I see Marie Michele, but also Sun, as you had your hand up, Sun. Do you want to, did you have a question? So we'll start with Sun, and then and Marie Michele. Oh, can you unmute? Let's see.
All right.
You can't. Do you know you're on? It looks like you're on your phone, maybe, huh? Can you? Oh, there you go. All right.
Yeah. I about Lecce, I really admire Lecce on the work that she does. She has done, and I also admire the Dalai Lama. But somehow, I cannot bring myself to listen or participate to, Lecce lecture. Like once a month, we would have. Samantha would organize a thing to have all of us, some of us, at the Lecce, sitting, but and especially the question. I try my best, but I just can't listen to it. All I observe is just like aversion, aversion, aversion. So what should I do with that?
I love your honesty, Sin. I think you're awesome from the very moment I met you. Am I on?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, it's like you either relate to it like as a teaching where, if I go to this is what usually happens, right? So that you're ready to, if you want, if the motivation is to work with it, then it's important to see that these are the causes and conditions. This is something's unpleasant for you, an aversion happens. It's not personal. It's okay. It would be a teaching on how to work with aversion, or like we are definitely not all gonna connect with everybody, and so teaching, and so we might admire somebody and respect them, but in terms of hearing something verbally rather than sitting in silence, it might be that that's what you need to do. That's okay too. Like not go, or go to when it's quiet, or we can't force certain connections. And I know everybody sitting here knows that. You can't make an orange an apple.
But I think it's a great opportunity to like earlier, the person who had, a question around like, is this person someone who I should be respecting or not? And should I continue to do this? Because there's real doubt there. You're not describing that. You're like, this is a person I really respect, and there's something difficult in terms of this particular dynamic that I have a challenge with. So what's kind of neat about that is it's like just totally about you, right? It's actually not about Lekshe, and that you have a chance to like take responsibility for there was a period many, many, many years ago in my youth where I had a period with Michelle where I was like, she was teaching and I was sitting and I just couldn't deal with it. There was just, it was just my own aversion came up so intensely. And it was very clear it had nothing to do with Michelle. And it was like very much about me. And it may have been whoever was sitting up there at that point in my life, at that point in my practice. And it was, it was interesting to have it happen on a retreat where I had to make choices, not so much in talks, but it was like question and answer. And I think there's something about Q&A that some people very find engaging, some people it's difficult. There's something that I found in general as a yogi, that Q&As were just very evocative for me in a way that was harder to manage. A talk is like story time, and it might be very engaging, it might be not, and you're sleepy or whatever, but there's something about this sort of back and forth of Q&As that as a yogi in particular, when you're really quiet, I found just very jarring and upsetting. I don't want to overstate it, but it was jarring. And so I had to kind of make that. There was a while where I had to sort of make a little dance of like, okay, I'm willing to, as Michelle said, I'm going to go, but I know that it's going to be hard, but I also know that it's really just my own mind. And I need to like, can I be interested in this? Can I be trying to really understand what is going on here and really understand what is it that is hard? What is it in the dynamic and the Q&A sessions that brings up aversion or insecurity or a sense of instability, or what's threatening about it? And be curious about it, and other times where I felt like I didn't actually want to rattle my practice, where I was quiet enough and I'd spent enough time getting kind of some stability of mind that I was like, actually right now, I don't want to do this to myself. I know I have this lesson to learn, but let's like actually just protect the conditions that I know are supportive of it. So it's kind of just another way of saying, what Michelle was saying of like, go, and you're willing to go because of a bunch of other reasons that feel important, and you take responsibility for the part of it that's you and that you're working on as your own spiritual growth. And then the other side, sometimes you don't go because you just that it just takes a lot of energy and you might not be up for the work.
I also feel like maybe like not only the Dalai Lama, but even Mingyur Rinpoche, the young, I like him too. But I still like, and also like the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I'm very interested in it, but still I cannot bring myself. I just don't find it like, it's not for me.
And but that's fine, son. It's okay when something's, there's so much richness in the Dhamma, and you don't have to force yourself to go to things that you're not connecting with.
Right.
I remember way back too, but it wasn't yesterday. But it was 78, and I was cooking at Insight Meditation Society, and different teachers were coming through all the time. And there was a teacher that I really wanted to sit with, but I knew it was going to trigger a lot of old stuff. And I did. I sat with her, but there was a point where I felt like I was sitting and there were bricks falling on my head. It was that unpleasant. Like it felt like the whole, I knew that it was going to happen probably, that I'd hit a certain point, and I just was like, I loved her and I took care of her, but I couldn't sit with her, and that felt fine and really fine, and she was fine with it too. I talked with her about it. It was just there wasn't that kind of connection that I actually feel like. I actually believe there's certain teachers we have connections with that inspire us. And I think that it's hard enough. The practice is hard enough. So you work with it, but if it's not inspiring.
You don't have a whole lifetime of bricks falling on your head.
No, I don't. Yeah,
it's not going to motivate you.
It's not going to. Yeah, it's not going to be energizing enough to put you through what you need to go through. That's how I feel about it.
Right. How hard it is anyway.
Yeah, it's hard. It's so hard anyway. Yeah.
But I can relate to Ajahn Chah teaching and his talk. I'm okay with it, but sometimes I feel like maybe the ritual of the Tibetan or something, but I just can't.
Yeah.
Some people get so
Good
inspired.
To know what works
yeah,
for you.
right. Yeah. Some people get. This is why I love differences. Every moment is different, right? And we're all different in the ways that's why what is it? There are as many paths to God as there are grains of sand. That's not a lightweight phrase, right? There are as many paths to God as there are grains of sand on the earth, right? And so the Buddha taught skillful means. He taught different practices for people because we all have different ways that we're going to find our way. So some people, they thrive on ritual. They thrive on it. It's what helps them. And some people absolutely don't.
So I need to respect my feelings then.
Don't worry about it.
Thank you.
It sounds good. Thanks, son.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marie Michelle.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the question I have is about if the Buddha had anything to say about, because in certain circles right now there are talks about potentially there being contact with intergalactic beings happening, or some kind of like beings we haven't encountered before. And this, I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but I was wondering how that might intersect with the practice, and if you had any thoughts or insights on that, either for yourselves or from the Buddha, or yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was just thinking yesterday about a friend of ours who was a monk for some years with Upandita, and I can't remember what the circumstance was where it came up, and I can't remember the exact words that the Sayadaw used, but it basically had something to do with someone asked about how, in the suttas there's like so many devas and there's all these beings from all these other realms, and where are they, if they were so apparent, and Sayadaw basically just said something of like, yes, they are not as apparent as they used to be, and they're really like, I don't think he elaborated on it. So I think it is it is an interesting, whether these range of beings, right, that are described in the suttas, and in the Theravadan world, and I assume it's different in the different, you know, Mahayana and Vajrayana kind of compendiums. But I think there's probably also a lot of overlap of like just these different planes that beings can get born into, right? Different realms. And I think that question of what is a realm? Is it something that is like just so physically distant from far away, or is it a kind of something else that's in the same physical space, or that can appear in the same space, but that is in some other, you know, kind of invisible, not normally visible realm? Um, and who sees them and who encounters them, and what are the nature, you know, what's the nature of those encounters and the nature of those beings? And I think there is a strong, you know, you see a lot in the kind of mindfulness world of saying, well, it's all really metaphors, and it's really all just kind of metaphors for parts of ourselves and experiences. You know, we can live in a hell realm in this moment, or we can live in a heaven realm in this moment, and that's really what it's trying to point to, or that at least can be interpreted that way. And there's something to that. I think that we, you know, will say that there's something helpful in recognizing that we can live in heaven realms and hell realms in this moment, and um, we don't have to have people believe in a whole cosmovision or cosmology in order to find the value in the practice and the sort of essential truths of the practice. So that also does feel important. But I also feel like there are many people, you know, who really do still value and experience relationships with other kinds of beings, and that is, you know, that people can find that helpful, or even whether they experience it or not. There's a recognition that, you know, when you're in the forest, that there are beings there that you want to acknowledge and honor and ask permission to enter, or, you know, sometimes it's more ritualized or sometimes it's less so, but sometimes there's just an acknowledgement of the trees themselves being beings, you know, or the rocks, or of course, other animal beings that we recognize as having kind of, you know, a living experience of being and becoming in a different way than we might recognize in plants and animals, but then in plants, but that we can recognize that. And then of course there's still plenty of experiences people have and describe that are, you know, encounters with, you know, beings that are of different, in some other kind of realm, you know. I think what the Buddha taught that was most important. Oh, I would say, first of all, I don't have any sense or knowledge of there being kind of like any prophetic aspect to that, of like these beings will come and will change something, right? That like a sort of significant historical event will
In
be related to that.
in the
Yeah.
Buddhist tradition, you mean that's not part of
Yeah,
that?
in
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
least
yeah,
in the
yeah.
Theravadan tradition, it's not
Yeah, yeah,
something that I'm aware of. Yeah.
yeah.
And I won't say that it's not there, but it's not something that I have heard of. And there are some stories that deal with the sort of kind of beginning and ending of these different kinds of epochs or whatever, like huge time frames where all the living beings will die out and be
Yeah.
reborn into the heaven realms, and then another era will come where there'll be, you know, beings will start to be born again into this realm. And so those types of things happen, but there's not, that I know of, a kind of like a sort of prophetic story around it. And the most important thing that the Buddha taught, really, I feel like, was that there was always a lot of respect. I mean, it was said that in the evenings, when everyone else is sleeping, he would go and teach in the Brahma realms, right? That he would teach the
Mm,
devas and these other beings, you know,
mm,
invisibly, you know, and that's where all of the Abhidhamma that we have kind of comes from, a distillation of that he taught them a much more elaborate version of what we have, which is
oh,
already like
okay.
mind-bogglingly elaborate.
Yeah.
So
What we
that's
can
all in
take in.
there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, you don't worry about it. You want your
Yeah.
head to,
Well,
it'll explode in 6 pieces or something.
yeah,
But
you
I do
won't
want to say that
absorb it.
the
Yeah.
thing is, right, yeah, you can't, you know, but the thing is what he really pointed to was like, yes, these beings exist in these other planes. Some of them may seem like they have incredible power, some may seem very terrifying, but the most important thing to recognize is that all of them are of the same nature, as they're impermanent, they're they're subject to die, and none of them are any more solid or eternal than any other beings. Even these beings that they often will believe they're eternal, these like great God beings, because they live for eons. It's very clear that they still have limited lives, limited lifespans in those realms, and that they will be reborn in some other realm according to their deeds, just like any of us. And so this idea of like even the so-called gods may have all kinds of incredible capacities and powers, and it may be sort of enchanting or to us on some level, that ultimately his encouragement was to not be to be respectful and to be caring and to be connected, but to not be enchanted, because these are also flawed beings and they also suffer from ignorance. If they didn't, then they wouldn't be reborn again. So that felt like the most important thing, I think, from my perspective. And maybe Michele and I talk about it, and I think, I don't know if you might want to add, but I know that we sort of share that view that yes, there are beings, and you want to be careful about over
So
aggrandizing their
yes.
importance. Yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think
No,
as
no.
I'm
Yep.
hearing you share, and I do want to hear from you, Michele, as well, if you have things to share, but I think as I'm hearing you, it's clarifying the question I have, or in terms of bringing this into this space specifically. And it's about how if let's say, whatever, if it's going to be a more internal phenomena or whatever, that the practice, like what the Buddha's teaching about loving kindness, about openness, about respect, like how can we use the practice to encounter, obviously, like anyone, but also like potentially forms of life that we might have not encountered before. And some of them maybe are, I don't know how that intersects with AI and all of that stuff, but I think what I'm trying to get to is it sounds like the world is going to change, it's changing, and in ways that are very complex, and many of us, at least I'll speak for myself, I have never, that's just like a lot of complexity added to the mix of an already very complex situation. So I think just trying to bring in, okay, can Buddhism be a kind of framework to how to approach this without making it a bigger mess potentially than what we're in already? So
I could say, I think it's a great question, and we can't answer it all in the time frame we have. But
no, yes, that's okay.
but I think Deepama was a teacher from India that I spent a lot of time with and took care of her a lot. So I was around her, not just like getting a teaching in the hall, but really just spent a lot of time with her. And one of her practices that she taught, but it was interesting to see what people picked up from it and people didn't. But she blessed everything. She blessed everything. That was her. She was just like, she showered everything, inanimate and animate, with metta. Like it was like, just like the Buddha taught, loving kindness is like a light, gentle rain. And that's what it was like. I could tear up because it was like so unconditional. She did not pick like, oh, this person is more important than this dog or this insect, or it was just a shower. And I do think that's appropriate for these times. And one of the things that I notice about how we're even taught, that because so much is conditional, that we're not interested in a lot of the unseen beings around us that are actually, we can see them if we take the time and effort. And so I think that when we have people do retreats and we're online and people are at home. To me, one of the biggest opportunities is actually starting to get a relationship with all kinds of unseen beings that are there. For example, living on the dry side of the Hawaiian island, we have turkeys and wild goats. It's unbelievable, like roosters, of course, but the other day we had a wild pig, a big black wild pig, and they don't come to the where we are. It's so dry, but I think it was thirsty. But what I'm trying to say is that what was very interesting is that we have these feral cats, right? And this feral cat is almost 16 years old, and she's never seen a wild pig, right? And so this wild pig came to the edge of the garage, which is her like little outside territory, right? And watching her see this pig was awesome. No, really, like it was just awesome because she got very still. She didn't run away, but she got very still. And it ran away, but it wasn't until it ran away that I saw her she looked at me like, what was that? Like, what was that? And it took a long time for her body to like relax. I thought, wow,
Yeah.
I wish I could look like that when I'm afraid. She didn't look afraid. She just looked still, but it was like,
Yeah.
and then I'm just going to add into this because the next day, there are things here called bufos. They're these big cane toads, and um, I don't necessarily think they should be in the garage in her water bowl, right? Like they come in and I'll like look down and I'll be like, wow, it's hard to get that interest right away in
Mm,
this other being. What I'm
yeah.
trying to say is that there's so many other beings that we just don't take the time with. And so I would include everything else that you're saying in with this. It's
Mm,
like this ability to be
stop
interested
the pause.
in
Yeah.
what is different, because that's what's so hard about the paradox of being human, and so many issues right now is like this word we're not even supposed to be able to say, diversity. No, and it's like you've got to fight this on all levels.
Mm,
And it includes everything you're saying. The Buddha taught metta for seen and unseen beings.
mm, mm.
That's part of the chant. How many ways does he say size? Little, how many, Jesse, how many different ways does
Small,
he say?
minute, and bulky, and yeah, it goes on. Right.
It's like, it's so cool. It's like he's like saying everything. And Deepama really took that in.
Mm. Yeah, that's helpful. And as you're saying this, there's a light, gentle rain that just started here.
That's
I just
that's
want to
perfect.
say yes. Thank you. Mm.
Thank you, Marie Michelle.
No, thank you, both
Yeah.
of you and everyone.
Hopefully, this is separate. We'll go some other time, but hopefully the AI is like listening to all of this and learning something as well.
May it be
Our
so.
only hope.
Yes, may it
May
be
it be
so. May
so.
it be so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone. Great to see you again this week. Take care. Take care of yourselves, each other, everybody. And I won't be here next week, but Michelle will be. So see you then.